This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express Monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everybody, welcome to the DBC Pod. This is the weekly review of September. I almost said August. September 5th.
I know, it's already September.
I can't believe it. Your trip is in less than 1 month away. Congratulations. Not much to talk about this week other than annual passes, more money for Disney type of thing. We've got a couple good pictures of things as they're prepping for the 50th kind of popping up, so we'll take a look at some of that. What do we got? Teacups Attractionality this week, which should be pretty fun. And this is actually, I think, is going to have more of an interesting conversation because it's not like Flight of Passage. How amazing is it? It's a 5 or a 4.
Yeah.
So some good questions on that. First, we want to bring in and take a look at this week's Attractionality. Bumped up to 69.68. I think it's 8/100ths of a point. It went up. Not much changed
I know,
this week.
it just can't get to that 70.
No. So the latest updates, I'm scrolling down here for everybody to see, was Fairy Tale Fireworks, Tune-In Lounge, I don't even know what that is, and then the Kusafari Coffee Shop and Bakery. So some minor eateries there. So nothing too exciting on the Disney Comeback Index. That being said, let's get on with the... Oh, wait, and of course, the DVC Expedition this week is the Monorail Part 2. So we're going to kind of focus on Walt Disney World and some metrics and things that you might not be aware of, and talk about that a little later at the end of the show. But first, as always, the magnificent Phil with the news.
All right. So I guess obviously we need to talk about our fantasy football draft, which just happened today, because everybody loves hearing about everybody else's fantasy football team. But
I listen to podcasts, like random podcasts. They're like, so I'm drafting it. I'm like, I don't care. I love football. I don't care what you did. It's fine. It's fine.
But seriously, for the news related to Disney, one of the big things that everybody had been waiting for, or a lot of people that have trips coming up soon, is that Space 220 has an official opening date of September 20th.
Huzzah.
So only about 2 weeks away. We still don't have a menu or the date, menu and pricing for that, other than knowing that it's a 2-course prefix for lunch and a 3-course prefix for dinner. We also don't know when ADRs are going to start for this, although the rumors out there are that they will also open on September 20th. So I have that marked in my calendar.
Gotta
wake up. Be trying to get one for our October 2nd.
I think unlike Cinderella's Royal Table and Be Our Guest before it was prefix menu, at least you have a lunch and dinner.
Yeah, I really like that it's
so it's nice.
It's not just like dinner and lunch will run you $100 or whatever it'll be. So
exactly.
It's nice that they have the options. Yep. Well, a little news story that just actually popped up this morning is that the refurbished monorail station at the Polynesian Resort has reopened. I don't know if all like kind of the scenery and everything's done at this point, but they are using the station. So that's excellent for people that are staying there or want to stop in for food and drinks and just wandering around, because it's a nice resort to wander around.
It's a month ahead of time, because I would figure this would have been like open like September 25th, right? Get just in time. But it's nice that they have it open early.
Yep. Jason mentioned before that some 50th related items have been spotted. Obviously, a lot of things have the iridescent note to them. The big one actually I saw was the banner that is out front of the train station, which I'm sure will become a popular PhotoPass spot. But a big sign in front of the train station right after you go through the ticket booths that says the 50th. Also, the Main Street clock got a golden overlay and looks really shiny. And we're seeing wraps for the buses and Skyliners that are specifically for the 50th event. So
you're going fast, faster than I can show these on screen here for the people watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, etc. So I've got the clock up, right, and it looks nice. It's shiny. It's cool. I like the little touches and stuff like that. And then what was the next one? You had the bus, correct? Or the Skyliner?
The bus on the Skyliner. I think they're both in there's a photo of each of them in that link I used.
Nothing fancy. I don't think. I think it's just looks like the rest of their marketing material. So it's nothing like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
look
not
at that.
surprised about the bus. I think this is the first time I can remember them doing sort of special wraps for the Skyliner. So it's kind of neat that they're doing that.
It's an advertisement.
Yeah, just another advertisement, just kind of showing how it's a big celebration and all stuff like that. Another update at the parks, although not necessarily related to the 50th, is that lightning lane signs have been spotted being pasted over where there was where was the fast pass signs, and some of them look okay. Some of them look like they just put a sticker up over the fast pass sign. So some people saying maybe these are just temporary, so they can kind of figure out the sizing and all that, and then they'll put up a real sign. But some of them don't look so great.
Yeah, if you look at the Small World one, people at home. Let's see if I can zoom in on this for you guys at home. You can kind of see a coloration between like the older pink and the newer pink, and you could definitely see the boundaries of the decal on that. Yeah. And it doesn't even look very good, even if it blended in, right? Like the text is kind of bouncy. I mean, it is kind of like the Small World, but it looks like usually I don't know. I'm not going to get into it, but
it just feels like they have a whole lot of signs to replace and not a lot of time, and they're doing it as quick as they can. And speaking of new things that will require you to pay more money at Disney.
Money.
They announced details for their new annual pass program. So after all that time it was away, they came back and they're still calling it the annual pass program, not like
and it's the same
Magic
thing.
Keys or anything. And it's largely the same thing as it was before. Just as far as dates, they will be available starting on September 8th. If you have a current pass and want to renew it before then, you can. Also, if you have an existing certificate, that will be migrated over to the level most corresponding to it, although you will retain any benefits that your pass originally included. I guess the big thing is that there's only 4 levels of passes, so there's nothing like the after 4 p.m. Epcot pass and stuff like that. And then one of the other big details is that there's no DVC discount. Before, the platinum level passes used to have about a $200 discount for DVC members. So if you're DVC and you need that top level pass, which they're calling the Incredipass because they all have to have fun names, your bill's going up quite a bit because you got the increase year over year, plus you're not getting that discount. So for some people in certain spots, they are going to see quite a bit of an increase. Other people, though, it's nothing major.
It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're Florida resident, you've got the normal kind of monthly payments, and I think there was a slight bump in price.
Yep.
The annual pass for all normal people is roughly the same. What was it, like 12 and change? Now it's $12.99, so
yeah,
slightly off. Now for the Incredipass, were you able to do a monthly payment on that too, or was that all a one-shot thing?
I think for out of state you had to pay it up front. But
yep.
for Florida residents, I think you could always do a monthly payment. But that is one of the things people were wondering if that would go away. They kept the monthly payments, although you do have to have a down payment and then monthly payments after that versus just the monthly payments.
So here's my disappointment. I would have loved to have purchased an annual pass, but I'm not dropping $1,300 on an annual pass. So I would love to be able to take restrictions on that, right? Why can't I have an out-of-state annual pass with a lot of blackout dates? Because I would make sure I use it if I had it. I'll come down and spend some money. But right now we've had this conversation a million times. The math still works out like you need 2 weekly trips throughout your throughout the year for it to make sense financially. And so my little sidetrack here, Phil. I didn't tell you this. My wife came over to me 2 days ago, or no, excuse me, on Thursday. Says, "What do you think if we just go down to Disney World for 3 days. Just go, bring the kids, surprise the kids, and go do Magic Kingdom." I'm like, who are you, and where did you come from? Because we just booked another Jellystone trip for October before Halloween. I'm like, that's awesome. Are you prepared to spend that type of money? I mean, we just I looked it up, so it's $1,300 for tickets for 5 people, 2 days essentially. Was thinking about doing a hopper on the second day so we could hop, because we're going to do Hollywood Studios the second day. I was thinking maybe we could hop over to Epcot, but that's going to be another $200-something. We're trying to do this on the cheap, right?
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, wait a minute. We got the trip in February. That's an 8-day ticket pass. And would it make sense financially in the short term to buy the annual passes now, it still does. It basically comes out slightly more, actually.
You kind of need the way with the increased price now. You kind of need that third trip to really for it to make financial sense. You can kind of maybe be even slightly ahead with 2, but you really need that third trip. So unless you want to fit in a third trip, but
yeah, I mean, I don't mind fitting in a third trip, but it's just like what's going to happen is I don't want to spend. What is it? $1,290, $1,300 times 5, so $5,000 and $6,800 right now, just to do it, just on the short. I mean, like if I had, I'd be like, okay, we're going down again, and this, that, and the other. But I don't want to drop that cash, that liquid cash right now for that. I mean, that's why if it was a monthly payment of like, if I could spend like $400 a month and pay it off, maybe I would. But no, they lost a customer at that point. But here's another thing before we get to the next segment. I want to talk about I was actually looking at Priceline for those fire deals.
Oh yeah.
And there's some cheap stuff out there. If you want to do short terms, $68 a night for God knows what kind of hotel. But here's the thing that I found tricky, and I got to investigate this a little bit better, is you put in 2 adults, 3 children, and then it goes to select a room and says, here's, the rates for 5 people on the side like you normally when you book things. And then when you go to select the room, it lists all the different rooms. And they have king bed, 2 queen, king and a sofa, whatever. And it all says for 2 people. Huh. So I'm like, what does this mean? I'm putting in the search feature like you normally search for a room, and I'm like, this. I mean, I would have pulled the trigger on it because I'm only getting 3 nights. If I can spend $150 for 3 nights or whatever it is, or $200 for 3 nights, let's do it. But now I'm like, okay, so it's Priceline, so now you can't you can't refund it. So it's like you're taking a shot in the dark. And then 3, who do I go to confirm that we can fit all those guests in there? So basically what's going to be, I do it all the time, it's like, okay, we have 2 queen beds. We're just going to shove the whole family in that room and no one's going to know. Because it's Disney, right? We don't have to get magic bands. We don't have to do anything else. So if it's just a Hampton Inn or a Marriott or something like that, no one's tracking how many people are in those rooms for 2 nights. So might make that decision tomorrow or Tuesday to see what we're going to do. So we leave on Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Drive all night. Surprise the kids. Do one of those things. Hey, we're going to a beach in Virginia. We're just drive a long time. And then they wake up, we're going to be in Florida. See if that actually works.
That would be fun.
Yeah, so annual passes are a no-go. I don't think it makes financial sense just yet. So I was hoping we could do hey, here's an annual pass. You can come in the last 2 weeks of August, the first 2 weeks of September, nowhere near the spring and spring break, maybe in February. The low points, and I would probably, if they can sell it for maybe I don't know, $800 or $900, that might be valuable to me. It gets me down more, and then they get more money out of me. I don't know, and I'm still spending money on hotels, right? I'm still filling a hotel. It's not like I'm a local where I just come in for the day and spend $20 on a soda.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from them. What is the thought process on not having different levels for out of state? That out of state only has that one option. Obviously, they must have data that shows that.
I don't think they need it, right? If they could fill people coming out, they could fill up the hotels. If the hotels are, what is in normal times, 95%, 98% occupancy rate or something ridiculously stupid, they're not at whatchamacallit, capacity in all the parks, so they need to fill it in with filler from quote unquote, the locals, right? So that just kind of fills in whatever, and it doesn't really change the. I would imagine it doesn't change the workforce, right? So they need the same amount of people to operate the parks. Let's just fit more people in there and spend more money, and I guess that's why you have the local Swifty.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would imagine that they would have, if they had multiple years where even the deals to fill up the hotels weren't the normal 25% off.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, filling up the hotels once things get quote unquote back to normal, you might see some annual pass discounts. I'm willing to bet. Or annual pass is the same price because they're not want to liquidate their cost on tickets, but bigger hotel savings if you have an annual pass. I mean, however it works, right?
Thing,
so we'll see.
And just a couple other details about the annual passes. Park reservations are here to stay as suspected. However, the higher level park passes now get more reservations. Up to the top 2 have 5 park reservations instead of only 3. And then the other thing that people got a little annoyed about is that Photo Pass downloads are not included with the annual passes anymore. They were like a free kind of extra in the past. Now you have to pay $99 if you want them included, which I guess the one good thing is if you're a family or whatever, you only need one person to get that. But it was kind of like, what does that cost Disney to just include it? And
more
just kind of,
nickel and diming.
I know it's nickel and diming, and it just kind of annoys people. But I guess they figure people are who want it will pay it, and then the other people, it's not a motivator to buy the pass. But
at what point can you pay $20 to get into a park when you don't have a reservation? You have an annual pass. You want to get into Magic Kingdom. It's full. You can get in for $20 more.
Oh.
You know, the Len Testa had something on touring plans a couple days ago. And I think it was more of a technicality. It wasn't really they were going to do it, but it brought up the conversation because you know what? No one would be surprised if they're going to start charging for reservations.
The only thing I'd be okay with that is if it's for like people who have a lower level pass that normally that day would be blocked out for them, and then you could pay $25 or whatever to get in.
Sure,
something like that. I could see working. But if it's like normally you could get in, but there's no park reservations. But now now it's like a annual pass plus or something to get in. That would be no good. But more money for Disney, but at the end of the day, most people will wind up paying it. I think if they paid it before, but at some point, everybody's going to hit their breaking point, right? So.
I think with people just wanting to get back down, it'll be interesting what happens because we're not going to feel the breaking point this year or next, right? So people are just like, well, we haven't been in 3 or 4 years. It's $1,000, $2,000 more, but it'll be interesting seeing the couple years now. Once it starts setting in, it's like, okay, we've been back already. Are we coming back again?
Exactly. No, good point. And they have what I guess next year will be Tron and Guardians, but nothing really on the horizons beyond that. So what's going to get people to come back in 2023 or 2024 or whatever?
But I don't think people are coming back for Tron and Guardians, right? They're going down because they haven't been in a couple of years. And by the way, it's a good reason too, because you have Tron and Guardians, right? Type of thing. But that's not like if you've been there and you're not going back for those things. And I don't think you're planning a second trip. Like, let's say you hit Tron but miss Guardians or whatever the order is.
Not just for one of them, but
yeah, exactly. So I think those rides make the I haven't been here in 5 years. It's a good.
Here's another new thing I haven't done. Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
All right. And on that cheery note, that ends the news. Reminder of our social media accounts: Twitter @PodDBC, Instagram the DBC Podcast, Facebook DBC Pod, the YouTube channel, and our Discord server.
Right. So make sure we want to hit those subscriber numbers on YouTube, please. So if you're just a listener, just hop on to YouTube and find our channel. We're not the Dirt Bike channel. It's the DBC Podcast, the DBC Podcast. Put in the word "the," you should be able to find us a little bit faster. And like all the videos, it helps us out, and it helps us more people find us that haven't heard us before. So we appreciate that. So we're going to move on to this week's Attractionality, the Mad Tea Party. Now I'm going to read this, Phil. So I'm going to turn my head here. For people that are listening, you can see the back of my neck almost here. Some reading to the side. So a very merry unbirthday. Pour yourself an oversized pastel teacup and twirl through the wild wonderland of color and song. As the party gets underway, sail back and forth around the towering teapot as the festive music fills the air. A taste of classic Disney magic. Mad Tea Party is inspired by the Mad Hatter's party sequence in Walt Disney's animation classic Alice in Wonderland and modeled after the iconic 1955 Disneyland park attraction. So, teacups. We have a really good follow-up question. I can't wait to get to that, but let's run through the questions for the week. These are kind of all over the place. For some reason, mine doesn't show what I voted for, but I remember what I voted for on this one. So I'm going to flash up here. How much do you like the concept of this attraction, Phil?
So I give it a 4. I think it's a good concept. I think it fits, Alice in Wonderland, I think is a great property. It fits in with Magic Kingdom. I really like the version in Disneyland that doesn't have the roof. It has like the lanterns and stuff. It looks really nice. And I think it fits well, and it's a fun ride. So I like the concept. It's a good, we see now where it feels like forcing IP into rides. I mean, this is kind of a standard teacup ride, and they sort of fit it into the Alice theme, but it fits well, right? So I think it's a good idea. So I give it a 4.
Yeah, I'm going back to my scores here. I just realized I flashed the questions for this week's Attractionality. That was my fault. I'm going to fix that in just a second. So I gave this a 4 as well. I love the concept because it's a spinning ride. It's fun. For what it is, it's really cool, I think. I'm getting this up here. There we go. Flash this back on the screen. So I had comments I put in the thing. I like the concept because I think the Magic Kingdom needs more second, third, and fourth tier rides. That's a hint of what the follow-up question is going to be. And I think the look of the ride is fun, right? It's festive, it's nice, it's got the music, the kinetic energy of that, and I mean we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. Question number 2, Phil, is how well do you think the Mad Tea Party delivers for its target audience?
I gave it a 4 as well. I think for people, especially with people with kids that want to make their parents sick, I think it fits. It fits that target audience quite well.
Right.
Like you said, it's just a fun ride that fits well into Fantasyland, and I think people just enjoy it. Like you said, you see it there. It's colorful. It draws you in, and you have fun on it. It's not, it's not overly complicated or whatever. But it's people just have fun with it, and it's, most people can do it. It's not like you have to be a certain size or whatever. Obviously, some people get sick from it, but largely, it's not. There's not really a height restriction or not a very high one for it. So
Sure.
I think overall it delivers well for the target audience.
I gave this a 3. No one voted for this less than a 3. So the most was a 4 on this one. I gave it a 3 because it delivers. It's simple, right? It's not a 4 or a 5. It's not a 1 or 2. I think it's right down the middle. You go in with lowered expectations because you can see the ride, right? It's just like it just goes around in circles. So it delivers on that. You see what you see. It's what it does, right? Because a lot of people are voting. I feel a lot of people vote on this because I love this ride and this is great. I mean, I think the delivery should be based on a scale, right? Like a 5 on the teacups can't be the 5 that's the delivery of Flight of Passage, right?
Right.
So I think people just kind of vote for sentimentality or their own personal enjoyment and not in context with the rest of the stuff. So I try to put it in context. That's why I voted for 3. Question number 3, how much do you personally enjoy the Mad Tea Party? Phil?
So I give this one a 3. My family enjoys it, especially my kids. This was largely related on our last time there when we rode it, and my kids really wanted to spin it really fast, and I had to close my eyes a little bit. I think I'm starting to get a little old for the teacups or whatever, or at least can't do it as fast as I could have in my youth. So that made me personally enjoy it slightly less. Like I said, the family still enjoyed it, and it's still something I'm willing to do. But that's why I knocked it down a tick to a 3.
I gave this a 5 because I like terrorizing my children on it. So the exact opposite of kids terrorizing their parents. I like doing it where you can start spinning it in one direction, and if you're strong enough, you can stop it, and then on a swing, you can get it going the other way. So I've got my youngest who's never been. Oh no, she was on it last time. I want to say maybe, and I can get her on now where she can truly enjoy it and throw her all around the darn thing as it goes around. If it wasn't for that kind of joking aspect of it, do I personally enjoy it? No, I hate spinning rides. This one doesn't spin you that much, right? So it's not awful. But it's a simple ride. So in context, I probably give this like a 2 or a 3 normally, but I gave it 5 for comedic effect, I guess. Question number 4, how well do you think the Mad Tea Party fits into Fantasyland and the Magic Kingdom? And I'm going to preface this question with our follow-up question. Should Disney have more of the C&D level attractions that provide kinetic energy to the parks, but maybe aren't must-dos? So, and then what would you like to see added? Because I think this question kind of blends together perfectly.
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So I give this one a 5 because I think we probably covered this already, but that it really does fit well into Fantasyland. It's a classic IP that Disney has, and like I said, pretty much everybody can do it. It's fun. I do, maybe I could have ticked it down a little bit because I do like how it looks even better at Disneyland. But I think overall, just the sound of it, the music that's going, and you see everyone spinning around and stuff, it kind of draws you in. It's one of the first things, if you're coming that way from Tomorrowland, it's one of the first things you see kind of welcoming you into Fantasyland. So I think it fits really well. And it like you said, with the kinetic energy, I think it adds a lot of feel to the area.
Most people gave this a 5, and there was 3 4s and 3 3s. I was one of the 4s. I mean, it doesn't fit perfectly well because it's kind of off to the side, like you said. You're coming from the Tomorrowland. It has amazing, like you said, kinetic energy. It's spinning, it's moving. You've got the music at night has some nice lights, and sometimes they do some overlays to it during some holiday parties. And for some, they do projections on this one, right? Rather than just normal lights. I could have sworn.
I think that's what they do for at least. At least they tried that for one of the parties, projecting onto the ceiling or something.
Was it the villains party?
I think that it was definitely something spooky related, whether it was
something
Halloween
like that,
or the villains. Yeah.
So the reason why it fits, like Magic Kingdom, we've talked about this before, needs more rides. It's the most populated park, and people talk about this on WDD Magic all the time and blame Disney for like, okay, you have Tron. Tron has about 1,000 people or 1,200 people per hour if everything operates perfectly. That's low capacity. Disney needs more simple dark rides that have 2,000 to 3,000 people per hour. It's like 2,200, 2,500. I think Haunted Mansion is around 24-ish. 23-ish, 24-ish or so. Disney needs to make that. So instead of spending $5 billion on Tron, a small short ride that's 40 seconds long or whatever it is, it needs like more of these things. So, that's why I always you got to demo the area for the steamboats. You need to put like 3 more attractions there, not just spinners or something simple. While those are nice, you need to put a couple more dark rides. You need to put, get rid of the princess meet and greets, even though those suck up a lot of people. So I don't blame them for keeping something cheap and easy there. But you could build a princess meet and greet somewhere and make it cheap. The princess meet and greets has had ride attractions in it before. You can use that space, so the infrastructure is there. But I think Fantasyland needs more movement, right? So when you come up by the carousel, it's great. You got that big whole courtyard, right? You've got Mine Train kind of whipping around. That's really cool. You go down towards Winnie the Pooh, which probably needs to be changed because that whole ride needs, I think, an upgrade. And then you get to the teacups. Then when you hang a left, you can kind of hear the circus music, which is nice. But once you go in the back end behind Mine Train and where Mermaid is, it's quiet again, right? All the way up to Be Our Guest. So whatever they were doing for the new Fantasyland 6-7 years ago when they were building it and designing it, I think they missed a mark there. So where would you put, or what kind of attractions would you like to see, Phil, added to any of the lands? Yeah. Obviously, there's plenty of room in Tomorrowland for stuff, right?
Yeah, I think just more simple rides. I think, we'll see what goes in where Stitch was, but I think that's a perfect location to add something that has good capacity and is something that everybody can do. I know the Astro Orbiters gets kind of booed down because it has the elevator to go up and stuff like that, but that does add some kinetic energy, as does the People Mover. So, more things like that. And even, over in Frontierland, there used to be a lot more. There were more boats on the water. They used to do like a show out there with like the cowboys and stuff that added a lot of interest, and people would stop and watch, something else for people to do. So I think they need to bring up more for that. And I know we were talking about Magic Kingdom specifically, but that was one thing I was, when they were going to do the Mary Poppins area in Epcot, that was, again, it was going to be like a C or D level attraction. They weren't talking about something major, but, would have had a whole nother facade, another area to hang out in, another simple ride that everybody could do, whether it was going to be a carousel or whatever. So I think, it seems like every time there's something gets cut, it's one of those types of rides. They keep the big things, but cut all the small ones. Yeah. And, I think they could use more of that. At least they, with Toy Story Land, they did add, the alien swirling saucers and stuff, but, they need more of those.
Yeah. I mean, they even cut, what was it called? The one from Galaxy's Edge. There was like a little,
well, they're talking about having a band. There was going to be a Bantha ride. Right? Yeah. Yep.
I thought that might have been neat, kind of like simple, kind of go around the perimeter type of thing.
Yeah.
Animal Kingdom needs 1,000 of these things thrown in there. But here's a question for you, because Bob Chapek is on the money side of things. Not that Disney executives aren't anywhere else other than the money side of things, but Bob Chapek probably cut a lot of stuff from Galaxy's Edge, and that was what he was criticized about ad infinitum all the time. So the next round of Disney World editions, right? So he has to finish out Tron, he has to finish out Guardians. I don't think there's any other projects on the horizon, right, for any of the parks that I can think of.
The only things would be if they do anything with the Play Pavilion in Epcot, and if they redo Spaceship Earth, if that ever gets done. Those are like the
Well,
only.
but those are like plans that have already been like years in
Started or
the
whatever.
planning or whatever, right? So they're in a docket for something. So the next major expansion, I would be willing to bet, because Chapek doesn't probably want to spend $2 billion on another land or fancy roller coaster, because I think they have enough roller coasters now. He might say, okay, instead of having $2 billion for land, here is $500 million. Give me 2 rides that aren't as expensive. We might get that, because the parks, I mean, he operated the parks for, I don't know how many years was he in charge of merchandise and parks and that whole thing. It was a bunch of years.
Yeah.
So, he's going to want guest satisfaction to go up so they can spend more money. So, and you know what? That's just my speculation. I think, and again, this is probably we're not going to hear anything about this for 5 years minimum before they start even thinking about what's next on that front. Okay, so moving on to, we have a topic this week, Phil. Huzzah. I like this one that he found. This one was a tweet from @DisneyGratitude1 with no E at the end. I'll pull it up here on our screen. And the question of the week is, define your Disney taste with your favorite. And for those that are listening out there, they're asking you what's your favorite song, movie, Disney park, ride, snack, nighttime show. So Phil, I'll let you go first with one of these. You know what? Hold on. Let's be even fun. Do you want to go first? We're going to guess each other's.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm throwing you under the bus or on the spot. Do you want me to guess yours first, or do you want to guess mine first?
Either way, why don't you start first, and then I'll do the next one first, or something like that.
Okay, so your favorite Disney song. So before we let's clarify. Are we talking about just Disney park and movies, or is it like anything that's Disney related?
I took it as song from a movie.
From movie. Okay, favorite song. I have to guess your favorite song is that song from the Goofy movie.
Oh,
that
Eye to Eye. Yeah, that's definitely up there.
Okay, but it's not. So what is your favorite song?
The first one that came to mind is actually "I See the Light" from Tangled. I enjoy that one, but
that's a good song. Yes,
I think that kind of is. I don't know, when I think of a Disney song, that kind of, and it's a more current one, but I think it kind of pulls all the strings and everything like that. I think, for a little bit more offbeat, it's hard to beat Powerline. That was a good guess on your part.
Okay. Okay, you guessed my song. This one, I've said this plenty of times on the show.
I think so. I think isn't it Circle of Life?
No, it is not.
Oh.
But it's close. It's Hakuna Matata is my favorite Disney song. That makes me just happy. Okay, the next is favorite Disney movie. I think this one changes for me.
I agree
on a weekly basis. I have a hard time thinking of what your favorite Disney movie is, but I'm going to have to go classic. I have to just say, I'm going to say Beauty and the Beast today.
It is not
far off.
That you didn't go far enough back. I think and maybe it's just because it's not one of the most popular ones, but I know growing up, this is one that I always enjoyed when it came on TV and stuff like that, and it kind of stuck with me. But I love Robin Hood.
Oh, okay. That's very good. Okay, so the next one is Disney Park. That's obviously Epcot for you. If you haven't been listening to this show long enough.
If you got that one wrong, I'd be a little worried. But
Yes. Can you guess mine? I think that one's easy.
Magic Kingdom.
It's definitely Magic Kingdom. Favorite ride for you, Phil? I'm going to guess...
I feel like I've said this one a few times.
I know. It's got to be like Living with the Land.
That's up there, but it's my absolute favorite is Jungle Cruise.
Oh, okay. See, I had to go Epcot. I know what I could probably round out your top 5. I don't just know how you're ordering them. All right, do you remember my favorite ride? It's going to be one of two.
Is it Haunted Mansion or is it Flight of Passage?
No, Haunted Mansion is my number 2. Okay. Number 1 is Pirates, but that's my all-time favorite ride at Disney World. Favorite snack? I gotta have to go Dole Whip because I know you have special attention to that.
Yes, it's a little nostalgic versus other things. There's probably other things I think taste better, but we have the nostalgic feeling for Dole Whips.
This is a hard one for you. because I actually don't have a favorite snack. So,
Okay.
so whatever you say is
talked
going to
about
be
having
wrong.
like the Mickey bars, just like you've talked about like walking down Main Street with them and stuff like that. But I don't know if
I
that's-
like them, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have any nostalgic attachment to Disney snacks. I have a story where I had extra dining credits, and I bought some kid behind me a bunch of snacks for free. I mean, but that wasn't a favorite snack. I mean, I don't. My daughter has this. Those, what is it? The Minute Maid, ices that you can buy. Whatever. They're not ices, but they're something, right?
Yep.
She talks about them all the time. So if you asked her, that's her nostalgic moment. So if we go down this surprise trip, if that actually happens, or if that happens, actually, we're not recording this podcast on Sunday. I'll be driving. We'll probably do it on Monday. But if you asked her if we actually reinforced it again with the next trip and the next trip, I think that might be her answer in 20 years when she's doing her own podcast.
when they have when they take over the DBC.
Yes, exactly. I got your favorite nighttime show for you, Phil. I mean, I think that's just Illuminations. Can I?
Yeah, the only thing is if we count nighttime parades, it would be Paint the Night, which is just my favorite parade ever, and I just love that at night. But if we're talking specifically shows, it would be Illuminations. Yeah.
Okay. Your turn.
And yours is Happily Ever After, right?
Of course, and we talked about that all the time. I kind of got a little happy. I was like, ooh, if we spend all this extra money, can I actually see it one last time? His friend of the show, Matt Pedo, is he down? Did he end up? He left 2 days ago. Is he back, or is he still there?
No, he's there now because he was messaging people for advice for how to not have to get on Magical Express at 6 a.m. on Monday or Tuesday when he's coming back.
Drive all the way back here in the Northeast, rent a car, and just go.
Yeah, he's there now.
Did you find, and I mean, I haven't scrolled through some of these answers on the Twitter feed. Did you find anything that was surprising to you? I'm looking through them right now. I see all kind of normal things.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy. You do see a lot of people love the classic shows. You do see a lot of Happily Ever After, but also still a lot of Spectrum Magic and stuff like that. I don't know, not too much.
Here's somebody that's favorite snack is a turkey leg. I mean, you're in trouble if you're eating that at Magic. I don't even know why they sell them. They're just going to sit in your stomach all day. Firehouse Dalmatian Mint Sundae. Where do you even buy that?
I don't know.
I've never even heard of that before. Anyway, let's move on to the DBC expedition this week for the Monorail Part 2. So I've got our notes here, Phil. Last week, we went over the history of monorails, where they came from, and you wove a very good tale on how they were designed, where was the inspiration, and everything else. And that kind of brought us to 1958-ish or whatever, and we're talking about how they were implemented. And this week, we're going to talk about how they are implemented currently at Walt Disney World. And because I'm an engineer at heart, I'm going to give you a lot of specifications and stats. Phil, hopefully you could jump in and smooth out the edges, so to speak, on some of the boring stuff. But this is going to be the first one where I do most of the talking, Phil.
Yeah, very excited.
Very excited. So here we go. So one of the most recognized – I'm going to put this over here so people can actually see my face when I'm talking, right? Hold on. Here we go. So one of the most recognizable symbols of Walt's Epcot and Walt Disney World today is the sleek, quiet monorail, which has made its debut in Disneyland in 1959. And is a fixture of the Walt Disney World property from opening day, connecting the Magic Kingdom to the Ticket and Transportation Center and the original 2 hotels, the Contemporary and the Polynesian. The Walt Disney World system extended to Epcot Center when it opened in 1982. The original Epcot design would have leveraged the monorail to a much greater extent to efficiently move more people across the longest distances in the city. Disneyland system was one of the earliest monorails, as we talked about last week. But many years after the adoption by Disney, monorails continue to be employed in a variety of environments, both public and private, around the world. So that meant basically, if you look at all of the marketing materials and everything, monorails are all over the place at Walt Disney World. You can't go with any. It'd be hard pressed, I bet, to go find 3 commercials within a given year that did not include a monorail. If it's a commercial for Disney World, if not all of them, there's probably 1 or 2 that's doesn't show a monorail. But going back to the original design for Epcot, I don't think we need to do like a DVC expedition for Epcot. There's plenty of people that do a much better job than we could have. But they wanted monorails basically bringing everybody around the circle of Epcot and into the center. They were like the main thoroughfares, and then it was the people movers that brought everybody to their home steps, so to speak. So that's kind of the original Epcot. And when Epcot was not going to be a new city or community of tomorrow, they took the monorails that were in Disney World and kind of put them in there as more of an attraction than an actual transportation type of thing. So there are several different colors of monorails. Here's the thing. So I've never really rode the monorail until, as an adult. It was never really ever part of my vacations. We always stayed off property when I was small. We never needed to take a ride on them. So I was always fascinated by people always referring to monorails by their colors. And I knew each one was, has specific colors, so I'm going to list them off there. Blue, black, coral, gold, green, lime, orange, pink, peach, pink, which is retired, purple, which is retired, red, silver, teal, and yellow. So there's a whole bunch of them. And people, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, people have nostalgia for specific colors. Do you find this, Chris?
Absolutely. And we just did that sort of that topic about our favorite, Disney song and stuff like that. I've actually had people ask, well, what's your favorite monorail color and stuff like that. And we did,
I see that all the time.
And we had one, we did a scavenger hunt once around the monorail resorts, and it was a photo one. And a lot of them were like, take a picture of the green, monorail, take a picture of the black one. So we definitely had to do a lot of spotting of different colors. So it's gotten really interesting. And they also will hand out, trading cards, almost like baseball cards, but for the transportation modes of transportation, so you can get one for each monorail color and stuff like that. So it's like, it's kind of got this whole world around it. It's
like a cult following,
a little almost
with a better term than cult, right? Like,
what's a positive cult? Like,
fan club, monorail fan club.
Yeah, but even like the toys, like we have a couple. Mm-hmm. We have one of the Walt Disney World and one of the Disneyland, but you can get those in different colors and stuff like that. And it's always like, oh, which color are you going to get when you order one and stuff like that. So, so they are very, very well, I guess, recognized, or like you said, people are like fan clubs around them. One other thing we did want to mention was a lot of the monorail trains, you'll notice, have these trapezoidal, what they call deltas, within the band of the color stripe. These are originally intended to help differentiate monorails that had a similar color. So this way, when they were, traffic, controlling things like that, they could say, oh, that we could tell that one apart because like the lime and the green, one has a delta and one doesn't. And that actually got, we're talking about people noticing things. Well, they've been kind of refreshing a lot of the monorails. And recently, earlier this month, Monorail Gold was refreshed, and it became a thing because it didn't have the delta on it, when before it had the delta, and now it doesn't. So it's like, that's how much people notice these things about the
it reminds me of like you go on the internet, people are very there's like World War II buffs, right?
Yeah,
on the internet, and they know like all the different tanks from like the Allies versus everybody else. That's like, this tank had this many treads, and they could tell. I mean, like, it's the same type of thing. Not to compare the monorail to like tanks and war machines, but it's cool that there's like these monorail experts that can identify them by different ways. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. And so the current version of the monorail, they call them the Mark, or the different models, and currently it's the Mark IV monorail. And we know Monorail Lime was added in May of 1984, and it had a navy blue delta on it, which was in homage to the original monorail costumes, which you even go back to Disneyland. You see that was the color of the monorail captains then. They've had different colors over time. In 1999, they were painted white. We don't know why. And then they returned them to navy blue in 2018, which is what they currently have. They're really dark. They almost look black, but I guess they're actually navy blue. And so most of them have that. We do know Coral has retained the white deltas though, but otherwise they have the blue now in them.
So, to kind of give you a couple extra specs on how big the cars are and how they hold. So they're all 6 cars each. They're 203 feet long. They could hold up to 360 passengers. I know where we talked about this last week. What was the number, Phil, that I'm going to scroll up here? How many? It's
150,000 a day on average.
Yes. That's a lot of monorail trips every single day. We could probably do the math, but it would not be accurate because there's a lot of different monorails running at any given time. So you have the resort monorail system, which is Magic Kingdom, Contemporary, Grand Floridian, Polynesian, and the TTC, not in that order. And then you have the Express monorail that goes from the Magic Kingdom right to the TTC. And then you have the Epcot monorail line that goes from the Epcot to the TTC. I've never ridden the Epcot to the TTC
really?
one. That's only because I've always had small children, and I'm like, we're not taking this long ride. But when I go down in February, there's a bunch of little, like, these simple things that I'm just going to check off on my list because we're going to have a large party there. So if, like, I could go to my mother or my wife, like, hey, you want to go ride a monorail for, like, 2 hours on our pool day and leave the kids with, everybody else? I think we might be able to do something like that.
See, we're the reverse. My son loves the monorail, and we've gone on the one that goes around the Magic Kingdom resort loop. We've just ridden it around 2 or 3 times just to have fun. And then we've had trips where we weren't planning on having a monorail trip, and just to make my son happy, we were in Epcot. We went out of Epcot, did the monorail like loop there and back, and then went back into Epcot. So it's kind of like his favorite attraction, even though it's not technically an attraction, but we've spent quite a bit of time on the monorails.
We did that with the Magic Kingdom loop, I think 2 trips ago. We did one of those runs. And I'm thinking to myself, when we went last time and it was just a downpour, we should have just taken monorail ride, but the monorails were very smelly when we went there last time.
Yeah, I'm hoping the refresh helps with the redos to help the smell.
I don't know if this is accurate, but timing-wise, the monorails open 30 minutes prior to park open and operates 2 hours after close. I don't know what they are now, since the Epcot line just kind of reopened, and with all the refurbs and the Polynesian stuff like that. I don't know if that's accurate. So don't hold us to that if you're going there and you're like, why? It was open an hour before park opened. I don't even know how it works with now. You have early morning hours.
Right.
That's a half hour before close. Do they start then, or can you get there earlier? I do not know. So prior to 2009, Disney allowed up to 4 guests, first come, first served, to sit in with the pilot. Then there was a crash in 2009. This was suspended, and then all the trains became automated at that point, which boggles my mind that they still had pilots only 12 years ago. Though it's still possible at Disneyland, and I know, Phil, you had that experience as well.
Yeah, so we've only been to Disneyland once. It was when they were celebrating their 60th anniversary, so back in 2015. And that was one of our priorities of the trip, was to get to ride in the front of the monorail, because you can still do it there, and they still have the humans in there driving them. So what you have to do is you go to the front of the line and you just ask the cast member then if it's possible to ride in the front there, and you might have to wait 1 or 2 trains or whatever, but they let us go in. The one thing we found interesting was it is absolutely a maximum of 4 guests. When we were there, my youngest was basically an infant, so it would have been 4 people plus her, and they were like, no, it can only be 4. So unfortunately what it was I went with my 2 oldest kids, and my wife had the baby in the back in the regular part, so she didn't get to ride in the front, unfortunately.
Oh man.
But the rest of us did. We got a lot of really good photos from that, so that was a really cool experience, especially at Disneyland, where it goes around and it kind of goes like outside the park and down along the road and everything, and you're kind of it's a really neat thing to do. So I definitely highly recommend it for people if you have the opportunity to try to do that at Disneyland.
I would definitely do it if I ever get a chance to go out that way again. So over the years, there's been about 4 different incidents, as I want to call them, with the monorails, which is not too bad considering that they were all manually operated for so very long. So, thumbs up to Disney for doing that. In 1974, the blue and a red collided due to a driver error. There's some minor injuries on that. 85, apparently a fire engulfed the rear car of the Mark IV Silver. And there were some worse injuries from that one, but no fatalities. Apparently the fire was started by a flat tire. Just kind of
was dragging on the track, and it just gets overheated. And
here's something that's funny, which kind of surprises me, that in 1985 there were no onboard fire detection systems, like no smoke detectors. Were people able to smoke on the monorail back in 1985?
Probably. I'm sure Walt was. Well, not 85, but I'm sure in 59, I'm sure Walt was.
But there are no onboard fire detections, emergency exits, and evacuation plans. Now Disney has evacuation plans for everything. So that's kind of funny. In 1991, Monorail Red collided with a diesel work tractor. So they have tractors that go up on there that kind of ride on the rails for repairs and stuff like that. Apparently somebody wasn't paying attention on that. In 96, an electrical fire occurred on one train. I guess that kind of happens from time to time. But again, 96, I'm surprised there's no fire suppression systems in some where the electrical components are. In 2009, a failed track switchover, pink backed up into the purple at the TTC, which caused, unfortunately, a fatality with one of the pilots. And this is why people are no longer allowed to ride in the front of the monorail. So that's what happened in 2009. Then 2014, there was a power failure by a lightning strike, so that shut down the system. And then 2 issues with coral and yellow with mechanical failures caused an evacuation in 2015. So in the last 6 years, let's take 1 year out of that, there hasn't been any incidents. It's all been automated, which kind of makes sense because there's not a lot of traffic with these things, right? They're basically going in loops, and they just have to time each other, just like ride vehicles. And Disney's.
Although we know that there obviously have been some challenges. I think there was that one incident where a door didn't fully close and the monorails were going. And I think even just this past week, Monorail Green just ran out of power, stalled, stopped working, and the people had to be rescued. And so there's definitely still some, but it doesn't seem to be, any issues of one colliding with anything else. I think all that's really well done now by computers, but the systems are old. The cars themselves are old. They're probably, there's been lots of rumors about replacement for the monorail trains. So they do have some issues every now and then that need to be addressed. But like you said, there haven't been really any major accidents or anything like that in a while.
Nope. So there's 2 manufacturers for the monorails. The Martin Marietta with the Mark IV, which is from 71 to 91. So they ran for about 20 years. And the Bombardier? Is that how you pronounce it?
I think it's Bombardier.
Bombardier. I missed an R got in there when I was reading it. Bombardier, which makes more sense. Transportation with the Mark VI, which is from 1989 to present. The Mark V was put into Disneyland, actually. So they're the current manufacturer of these things. They're very, very expensive, and I don't even know what else that company does other than
and they have to be custom made. Not to get, I guess you're the one who's going to get technical, and I don't know the exact measurements, but I know the beams that they use at Walt Disney World are a different thickness than the beams they use in most other monorails. So they can't just get parts that are generic. Yeah. Everything has to be custom made for Disney. So I think that's one of the reasons too they haven't replaced the trains, because they basically have to be custom made versus just taking whatever is being produced anyway.
So the way the monorails work, basically they ride on the rail, like Phil said. But moving on the rail, there's tires. There's 2 horizontal tires, and there's a vertical one that allows it to go through the track. There's some induction on it, which helps the power of everything. So that's why you don't see either major battery packs or, it's not like a cable car where they have overhead, electrical connections. And I forgot to mention the Mark VI has 30% more capacity than the 4. So that's on the upgrade, they got some more people. There's a maintenance shed about to the northeast of the Magic Kingdom, which typically can house 10 of the 12 monorails at a time. So it's rather large. You can go on Google and kind of check it out. It's pretty cool. And so when the temps drop below freezing, and they need to house all the monorails, and I guess it doesn't drop below freezing very often down in Orlando, but when it does, extra 2 trains are typically housed in Contemporary, which I found interesting. I've never seen a picture of just monorails just sitting.
Yeah, just 2 of them hanging out there.
So I guess with that open air, the Contemporary, and it's freezing outside, that might be a little uncomfortable over time. So, which I find is interesting. So go back some refurbs that we're talking about going in the future. So in 2019, the green, silver, and black were refurbed. Last year, the peach and blue were refurbed. And orange was, I guess, finished earlier this year. And then coral and gold are supposedly. Well, you just mentioned gold, right?
Yeah, gold, September 5th, it just came out. So I think when we started this research, it hadn't been out yet, but now it's out.
So, and then of course, yellow, lime, and teal are going to get their work done as well. So, little specifications for you guys of the history of the monorails. But why don't we talk about the future of monorails at the Walt Disney World?
Yeah, so obviously Walt had this big vision for how he was going to prove how monorails could work in urban settings and would become a new method of transportation for the country as a whole, really. As we know, that didn't really happen. They do have their applications in certain places, but not broadly, probably as Walt visioned would have happened by now. Part of this, I think, had to do with the rise of the automobile and how it became more affordable after World War II. And then obviously the interstate highway system, which was put up also after World War II. Public transportation just took over and people had their own cars and could go everywhere. And you kind of saw just a lot less investment into any trains of any side really, but especially anything new like monorails. Just you weren't getting the public funding for those because everybody had cars and it wasn't needed. However, it does continue to be that icon of Disney parks, like Jason was talking about. It's in all the commercials, on tons of advertisements and T-shirts and all sorts of that. But as we also mentioned, they have some issues, and the expense to replace them and maintain them and stuff like that. So, do we think they would ever get rid of the monorails?
I think that's an easy talking point. No, they would never get rid of them unless it's like 50 years from now and they're just falling apart and they can't find anybody to build them. Yes, then they would finally get rid of them. But I don't think they would voluntarily ever get rid of them.
Yeah, I really can't see it. I mean, and then what do you do with the Contemporary, which has like the two big holes and stuff like that? So at the very least, I can't see them getting rid of the Magic Kingdom line. I mean, maybe to Epcot, just with how long it is, maybe there's something that just the maintenance of it isn't worth it and something else can be done. But even that, I don't know. But I would be shocked if they ever got rid of them. But
just the fact that they just refer the Polynesian. So at least they're invested for the next. They usually do refurbishments for 20 to 30 years investment timeline. Yeah. So at least we're safe for probably the next 2 decades.
So now that we know it's such an icon, would they ever extend it to either other parks or other hotels or anything like that?
I don't think they would ever extend it because if they're going to extend anything, it's going to be the Skyliner.
I think so too. And it's one thing to add, if you look at the original plan for Epcot, or really the Florida project as well called it, the monorail really only went kind of in one line. It just went back and forth, and it kind of went, it had the theme park in the upper left, the northwest, and you had Epcot and then some other marketplaces in the southeast. And it worked because the tracks just went kind of in a line. They're not really made for doing like big loops and circles and stuff like that. So if you ever wanted to connect it to like Hollywood Studios or Animal Kingdom, it's just not really the mode of transportation for that. And like you said, I think it would be much more likely to be the Skyliner or something like that.
Yeah, just think of capacity, right? You could put a lot more people on a Skyliner that's constantly moving than a monorail that you have to wait for it to go and then get onto the next one, et cetera, et cetera. So the Skyliner is probably the people mover of the future in Walt's vision. Yeah,
and it would be neat to see them. There's always rumors that there's going to be something to connect Animal Kingdom Lodge to Animal Kingdom. Whether that's going to be another line to the Skyliner that then also goes to Coronado and some others, or if they do some sort of people mover or something like that. But I think, the last question we had was, could they ever replace it? And I don't think they'd ever fully replace what's there, but I think it's that these other forms, whether it's the Skyliner or something else, is sort of replacing it as the new unique mode of transportation for the future at Walt Disney World.
As Disney ramps up, get back to where they were in 2019 over the next couple of years, they were very keen on figuring out different modes of transportation, keep it moving. They wanted to get away from the buses, essentially. Yeah. So if you could put the Skyliner on there, which I think has been successful, as long as they can maintain the throughput of that thing, which tends to slow down, so they're going to have to hopefully perfect that. I think the only time we'll see let's say a different form of Disney transportation that's not a Skyliner, that's not a monorail, is if they ever decide to build more in Florida, right? So Fifth Gate, new hotels, that beachfront, like Vero Beach type of thing. Jim Hill did a really cool report a couple months ago on the history of Vero Beach and where it came from. And basically, back in the day, Eisner really wanted a beach resort because I think it was Eisner that put it in place. But Disney wanted a beach resort because that's where people would go down to Florida. That's what people were saying. We go to Florida, go to the beach. So they wanted to do one of those things. And I could see Disney maybe putting a high-speed rail somewhere if they could ever get, partnerships with. I know there's a new line that's coming in. If they could ever
from Brightline or whatever.
Yeah. So there's always talk in the U.S. government about putting high-speed rails up and down the East Coast. And if Disney could kind of take advantage of that potentially and do some stuff, I think that you might see something like that. I mean, that's pie in the sky like type of stuff. That's like 50 years in the future if things get kind of different. Unless 50 years from now you got better technology. Now you can have flying cars that can just kind of ride it and stuff like that.
Well, that was the other thing that I could see at some point is if they invest in autonomous vehicles or something like that are kind of taking people from resorts to hotels and stuff like that. So you don't necessarily need buses. You have more of those things that are much more efficient, maybe have their own kind of paths and stuff like that.
Yeah, they would.
But that's probably a little ways off too. But
No, you could technically do it now, right? So if you built a autonomous vehicle path, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be fairly easy. They're not with other traffic. You could do it, but your throughput is what? You have a $50,000-$60,000 vehicle that could fit 6 people in it, maybe, because you have a different design for it, kind of like the sci-fi movies where it's like just basically an open cabin. You're still not going to beat the capacity for the buses. And a normal bus costs what? I don't know what a normal bus costs. $80,000 for a big giant bus. $90,000, $70,000. Somebody correct me on that one. But a small car that's driving around by itself, that's going to be very expensive with the amount. So I don't think you'd ever see that unless it's kind of like a VIP thing, kind of like.
Well, I think it would be like kind of what the minivans were, right, where you had to pay for it or whatever.
Right, but the minivans is just a person driving, so you don't have to build the infrastructure for it. That's what I'm thinking. The infrastructure goes along with it. Okay.
All right. Well, in conclusion, hopefully this was a interesting 2-part discussion around the monorails, how they started, how they've grown, what the vision of them was for Walt Disney World, and kind of how it's become so intrinsic with the park. I think we can all safely say that the monorail has become more than just an attraction or a means of transportation. It's really become a symbol of the parks and what they represent, an aspiration to make the future a reality. And a future that's more efficient and better for all members of society. I think that's what Walt wanted when he had his vision of these monorails, is that it's kind of sleek, it's of the future, it's more efficient, and it's clean. It's clean and all those sorts of things. And it's really become part of the story of Walt Disney World. I mean, when you think about how you get to the Magic Kingdom, if you drive there, you have to park at the TTC. And for most people, you get on that monorail and it's part of the story of arriving at your theater that you're going to go through and to enjoy your day. So it really is a key component in, as I say, leaving the troubles of the real world behind you and kind of letting you focus on the world that can be. And we all know the most famous quote from the Disney monorails is, "Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténgase alejado de las puertas." And
with that, I was gonna close out the show. That was such a wonderful finish. But we have to go to our DVC recommends for this week. And it's a good one. If you guys want to have any other additions to the monorail, the only thing I keep jumping around here at the end, and I apologize. The only thing I think we could have done better is a deeper dive into the fan club of the monorail, right? Some examples of the toys and stuff like that. I think we could have brought up those pictures, but that might have been either a part 3 or something that I don't know if there's enough content to have a whole bunch of just other than pictures of toys and stuff like that. You had the DVC recommends for this week, Phil.
So just one thing that we didn't talk about this week was that they had media previews before, but the first official Halloween Horror Nights was just the other day. And obviously a lot of people have out there footage from them. I thought I would just share about one of my favorite sites and people I chat about back and forth on Twitter, the folks at Thrill Geek, who I think they really love Halloween Horror Nights. They love Universal. They do some great coverage, and they got, I don't know how they were able to get them all up so quickly, but they put up some great videos about the houses and stuff like that. And they do the footage is amazing. I think it's some of the best out there, but I think they're like the right length. They're not too short, but they're not like 30 minutes long. Like they give you a good feel for what the houses are. But without overstaying their welcome, I would say.
That group has a pretty good production quality with their stuff.
Yeah. So I would, so we'll tweet out that link. We'll link to there, but just if you go to youtube.com/thrillgeek, you can see all their latest videos from Halloween Horror Nights.
That being said, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week with the continuation of the DVC Expedition into Transportation. We've got a couple things that we haven't selected which one yet, but you'll be riding it and moving. And we'll see you then. Have a good night, everybody.